The sun stretched across Maplewood Heights, painting the cul-de-sacs with golden light. Birds chirped lazily as morning joggers waved to neighbors who were already tending to flower beds or sipping coffee on porches. From the outside, Maplewood Heights seemed perfect: pristine lawns, identical houses, and an HOA that prided itself on maintaining community standards. But inside the Johnson household, the atmosphere was quietly electric. Malcolm Johnson, a tall man with a calm but commanding presence, reviewed papers in the home office. His wife, Vanessa, hovered over the kitchen island, sipping her espresso, her eyes sharp as a hawk. Their teenage daughter, Tasha, lounged nearby, headphones on, oblivious to the tension radiating in the room. "What's the word from the HOA?" Vanessa asked, breaking the silence. Malcolm leaned back, hands steepled. "They sent another letter. Complaints about the garden. Complaints about the driveway. Complaints that don't even make sense. They're escalating." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "Escalating, how?" Malcolm smirked. "Threats of fines. And eviction notices. Can you believe it?" Vanessa laughed softly, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Eviction? From our own neighborhood?" Malcolm spread the papers across the desk. "Not just our house. The HOA thinks they can strong-arm us. But they don't know." He paused, letting the words hang in the air like a challenge. "They're messing with the wrong family." Indeed, the Johnsons weren't ordinary residents. Most neighbors had no idea, but Malcolm and Vanessa were the quiet architects of Maplewood Heights itself. Decades ago, Malcolm's parents had bought the land in bulk, subdivided it, and sold plots to families under the HOA's promise of community governance. In reality, the Johnsons retained the original deed to every single lot in the neighborhood. Every house, street, and cul-de-sac legally belonged to them, though the residents thought they owned their homes outright. Tasha, finally pulling off her headphones, leaned forward. "So, if they try to kick us out, they're just breaking the law." Malcolm nodded. "Exactly. And they're about to find out just how expensive a mistake that is." Meanwhile, in the HOA office, a sense of frustration hung thick. Linda Carrington, the HOA president, slammed her coffee cup on the desk. "They're just one family. One family shouldn't be this difficult." Her assistant, fumbling with a stack of letters, hesitated. "Ma'am, have we double-checked the ownership records?" Linda waved her off. "Malcolm Johnson. Whatever. We're in charge here. We enforce the rules. That's what matters." Little did Linda know, she was about to awaken a storm. That evening, the Johnsons gathered in the backyard. The golden light of sunset glinted off the swimming pool as Malcolm held a remote, tapping a few buttons. A map of Maplewood Heights illuminated the big screen on the patio, a full overlay of every property boundary, with the Johnsons' holdings outlined in bold red. Vanessa traced a finger along the lines. "You really own all of this?" Malcolm smiled. "Every inch. Every street, every tree. And soon, they'll realize it. This neighborhood, it's ours. They just didn't know." As darkness fell, a single streetlight flickered across the cul-de-sac. Across the street, a black SUV rolled slowly past the Johnsons' home. Inside, figures whispered and scribbled notes, unaware that their every move was being observed, not just by cameras, but by a family who had been planning this moment for years. The game was set, the players unaware, and the first move had already been made. By the time the HOA sent their next notice, it wouldn't just be a warning. It would be a message, a calculated counterstrike from the people they had underestimated. Morning broke over Maplewood Heights with a deceptive serenity. Children biked along the sidewalks, sprinklers hissed on freshly mowed lawns, and neighbors waved politely as they left for work. To any outsider, it was the picture of suburban peace. But inside the Johnson household, the calm was a mask. Malcolm and Vanessa sat at the kitchen table, laptops open, scanning emails and news alerts. The previous night's surveillance had revealed something troubling. The HOA had enlisted a private law firm known for aggressive tactics. "They've hired outsiders," Vanessa said, frowning. "They think we'll fold under pressure." Malcolm chuckled. "Outsiders, yes. But they don't understand the rules. Or rather, whose rules really apply here." At that very moment, across the neighborhood, Linda Carrington and her board were drafting what they believed would be a decisive move. Letters demanding immediate eviction, threats of liens, and warnings that fines would escalate to thousands of dollars were printed and ready to go. But they hadn't anticipated Malcolm's foresight. The Johnsons had spent years studying every legal loophole, every zoning law, and every clause in the HOA bylaws. Malcolm had even preemptively filed documents with the county to cement the family's ownership rights, making the HOA's authority virtually powerless. By mid-afternoon, the first letters hit mailbox after mailbox, including the Johnsons'. Vanessa opened theirs in feigned shock, letting out an exaggerated gasp as Malcolm watched with a faint smile. "Looks like they're serious," Vanessa said, pretending unease. Malcolm leaned back. "Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted." While the HOA believed they were tightening the screws, the Johnsons were quietly mobilizing their own plan. Malcolm's fingers danced across the keyboard, sending encrypted messages to contractors, legal allies, and even a few unsuspecting neighbors who had unknowingly become part of their strategy. By evening, the cul-de-sac buzzed with subtle activity. Barricades disguised as landscaping vehicles appeared on empty lots. Drone cameras hovered silently, capturing every HOA move. And in the shadows, Vanessa coordinated social media posts, subtle reminders to residents about their rights, cleverly worded to avoid suspicion while planting seeds of doubt about the HOA's legitimacy. Across the street, Linda was growing increasingly desperate. "Why aren't they reacting? They should be panicking," she shouted at her assistant. "Malcolm Johnson always reacts." Her assistant, trying to remain calm, muttered, maybe he's playing a different game than we think." Linda scoffed. "He doesn't get to play games with us. We make the rules here." Meanwhile, inside the Johnson home, Tasha leaned against the staircase, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. "You know, Dad, if they think they can scare us with papers, they're in for a surprise. I might even help." Malcolm looked at her and nodded approvingly. "Smart girl. This isn't just about property. It's about control. They picked a fight they can't win." As night fell, a subtle tension blanketed Maplewood Heights. The HOA's office was lit, papers strewn across desks, phones ringing off the hook. And in the Johnson living room, the family watched every move, calm and collected, while the first real strike of their plan quietly unfolded. By midnight, the HOA would wake to find that what they thought was their leverage, the threat of fines and eviction, had been neutralized before it could even begin. The Johnsons weren't just defending their property, they were reclaiming authority over the neighborhood in ways the HOA could never anticipate. And yet, even as the family celebrated quietly, a shadow loomed. The HOA was about to make a move so reckless, so bold, it would test the Johnsons in ways no one could predict. The following week dawned gray and ominous over Maplewood Heights, clouds hanging low like an unspoken warning. Inside the HOA office, Linda Carrington was pacing, her heels clicking against the polished floor. "We've given them enough warnings," she muttered. "It's time to escalate. Full legal action. Immediate eviction proceedings." Her assistant hesitated. "Ma'am, are we sure we want to go that far? Malcolm Johnson is." "Don't finish that sentence," Linda snapped. "I make the decisions here. He's just another resident. He can't stop us." What Linda didn't realize was how dangerously wrong she was. Meanwhile, at the Johnson household, Malcolm was reviewing a fresh batch of HOA filings that had just landed in their inbox. He raised an eyebrow, letting a slow smile creep across his face. "They've officially tried to sue us," he said casually. They really don't learn, do they? Vanessa sat nearby, reviewing her own set of documents. Eviction papers. Fines. Lawsuits. They've thrown everything they've got, and yet, here we are. Malcolm leaned back, fingers interlaced. Here's the fun part. Everything they just filed, they've done so under the assumption that they own the land. But technically, it's all ours. Every single lot. And that means any legal action they initiate, well, it's void before it even begins. Tasha, now fully invested, grinned. So, we just watch them stumble around? Malcolm chuckled. No. We do more than watch. It's time to make them realize who's really in charge. That evening, the Johnsons executed the first phase of their plan. Vanessa called in a trusted attorney friend who specialized in property law, carefully orchestrating a counternotice to the HOA that outlined, in meticulous legal detail, that the Johnsons retained the original deeds to the neighborhood. Copies were discreetly sent to all residents, framed as friendly reminders of property rights and legal protections. By morning, Maplewood Heights was buzzing, not with HOA threats, but with whispers among neighbors. Questions circulated: did you know Malcolm Johnson still owns this land? Could the HOA even enforce those fines? Across the street, Linda Carrington noticed the sudden shift in sentiment. She scanned social media and resident messages, confusion growing with every post. What are they doing?" she muttered. Panic crept into her voice for the first time. Malcolm, aware of the HOA's floundering, escalated his next move. He instructed contractors to begin discreet renovations and property updates on the lots they technically owned, work that was completely legal under the original deeds. Trucks and workers moved quietly, making it look routine, but every action was a statement: the Johnsons were reclaiming control. By the middle of the week, the HOA attempted to counter with a press release declaring authority over Maplewood Heights. But the Johnsons had already preempted this by contacting local news outlets, presenting evidence of their ownership and the HOA's unlawful claims. Reporters arrived, snapping photos of the Johnsons' property maps, drones capturing every lot from above. Neighbors, once loyal to the HOA out of habit, began questioning everything. The local community meetings grew heated as residents demanded answers, many openly siding with the Johnsons. Linda and her board were now scrambling, their authority crumbling under the weight of exposure. That night, the Johnson family sat on their back porch, the air electric with anticipation. Malcolm sipped his whiskey slowly, savoring the moment. "They thought a lawsuit could intimidate us," he said. "They thought fines could pressure us. But they forgot one thing: we wrote the rules of this neighborhood long before they ever moved in." Vanessa smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "And now they're about to realize just how much control we really have." As the Johnsons surveyed the quiet streets, lit only by the soft glow of streetlights, a faint hum could be heard, drones buzzing silently above, cameras recording, emails sent to key allies. Every move had been anticipated, every response calculated. And yet, in the shadows, the HOA was not done. They were reckless, desperate, and growing bolder. Malcolm knew this. Their next move would be dangerous, one that could spark chaos, but the Johnsons were ready. Because Maplewood Heights wasn't just their home. It was their chessboard, and every piece was in their control. Maplewood Heights had never been so tense. The air carried a subtle charge, as if the neighborhood itself sensed an impending storm. Residents whispered behind fences, eyes darting at every HOA vehicle that rolled down the cul-de-sacs. The Johnsons, however, moved with calm precision. Inside the HOA office, Linda Carrington was now frantic. "We need results," she shouted at her board. "Malcolm Johnson is making us look weak. If we don't act now, we'll lose everything." Her assistant, voice shaky, reminded her, "Ma'am, the residents are starting to side with him. They've seen the documents. The media coverage, it's not good." Linda slammed her fist on the desk. "I don't care. We'll go in person. We'll confront him directly. That'll scare him. That evening, the Johnsons watched as the HOA's convoy of SUVs rolled down the street, each vehicle carrying stern faces, legal briefs, and an overconfidence that bordered on arrogance. Malcolm, standing on the porch with Vanessa, exchanged a knowing glance. "This is it," he said softly. "Time to show them how a family handles threats." As the HOA representatives approached the Johnson property, the family executed the first part of their counterstrike. Hidden cameras captured every move of the approaching vehicles, recording evidence of trespassing attempts and intimidation. A small team of allies, ready to intervene if needed, remained on standby. Vanessa greeted the HOA at the front gate, her smile calm but authoritative. "Evening," she said. "Can I help you?" Linda, flustered but determined, brandished papers. "You have 15 minutes to comply with these demands, or we will proceed with legal action and enforce fines immediately." Malcolm stepped forward, his tall frame commanding attention. "Linda, these lots, this street, every house in Maplewood Heights, it's all under our deed. Every legal move you make against us is invalid. You're trespassing right now." Linda froze, a flicker of doubt crossing her face. That can't be." Malcolm's tone sharpened. "Check the county records. Every lot, every plot, it's ours. And any further intimidation toward our neighbors or us will be reported, legally, in full detail." Vanessa, sensing the opportunity, added, "We've already informed the media and residents. Every action you take from here will be public knowledge. Every misstep recorded." The HOA members exchanged uneasy glances. Panic replaced arrogance. What they had assumed would be a simple show of power was crumbling under the weight of the Johnsons' preparation. But Malcolm wasn't done. With a small click on his phone, alerts went out to contractors working on several lots. Street signs flipped subtly, cameras repositioned, and invisible barriers ensured that the HOA convoy couldn't leave the Johnson property without being recorded and documented at every step. Linda, realizing she had underestimated them, tried to salvage authority. "This isn't over. We have bylaws." Malcolm interrupted, voice calm but icy, "Bylaws only apply if you own the land. And here, Linda, you don't. You've already lost the neighborhood, the residents, and soon, the law itself will back us." By the end of the confrontation, the HOA left, not with victories, but with humiliation. Their attempt at intimidation had been recorded, exposed, and legally nullified. Residents, previously quiet, now whispered openly about the Johnsons' ownership, their rights, and the HOA's overreach. Back inside their home, Malcolm and Vanessa finally allowed themselves a brief moment of relief. "It's done," Vanessa said softly, looking at her husband. "They've seen who's really in charge." Malcolm shook his head with a slight smile. "Not entirely. There's still one final phase. One final lesson to teach them." The dawn over Maplewood Heights carried a quiet tension. The neighborhood was calm, deceptively so, as if holding its breath. But inside the Johnson home, the family was far from idle. Malcolm and Vanessa had spent the night finalizing the last steps of a plan that would ensure the HOA never regained its power. "This is it," Malcolm said, reviewing the final legal filings. "Once these are submitted, their authority is officially null. Every past action they took is invalid. Every threat, every fine, every notice, they have no legal standing whatsoever." Vanessa, calm but determined, added, "And the residents, they finally understand. The neighborhood belongs to us, and they need to know it." By mid-morning, the Johnsons' attorney personally delivered copies of the finalized deeds and legal notices to the HOA office. Cameras and reporters captured the moment, making it impossible for the HOA to dispute or ignore. Inside the office, Linda Carrington stared in disbelief as the papers were handed to her. This can't be real," she whispered. Malcolm's voice, firm and composed, cut through the tension. Every word is real, Linda. The deeds, the filings, the law, it's all on our side. From now on, Maplewood Heights answers to us, not you. Vanessa stepped forward. And as for intimidation, harassment, or false claims, every move you've made is documented. Residents and authorities are fully aware. This ends today. Linda slumped into her chair, defeated. She had gambled on fear, aggression, and overconfidence, and every tactic had backfired. The neighborhood that had once been under her sway now looked to the Johnsons as guardians, not as oppressors. Outside, neighbors began to gather, curious and eager. Whispers of admiration rippled through the crowd. For years, they had complied with the HOA out of habit, fear, or obligation. Now, they were free, empowered, informed, and aligned with the Johnsons. Malcolm addressed the crowd with calm authority. This neighborhood was built by families like ours, with care, vision, and patience. Today, we simply remind everyone of what's always been true: the people who create a community should have the power to protect it, not those who try to control it through fear. Vanessa added, from now on, Maplewood Heights is guided by respect, fairness, and transparency. No one here will be intimidated, no one will be silenced, and no family will be threatened in their own home. As the crowd cheered quietly, Linda and her board left the neighborhood in silence, the weight of public exposure and legal reality pressing heavily upon them. It was the end of their reign, and the beginning of a new era. That evening, the Johnson family stood together on their porch, looking out over Maplewood Heights. Streetlights glimmered softly on manicured lawns, and the neighborhood, once tense and fearful, now hummed with a quiet energy, a renewed sense of community and respect. Malcolm smiled at Vanessa. We did it. Every step, every risk, it all led here. Vanessa leaned on his shoulder. And the best part? Everyone knows we're not just residents. We're the reason this neighborhood exists, and now everyone can finally see that. Tasha, grinning, added, and they'll think twice before messing with us again. Malcolm chuckled, watching the quiet streets. Maplewood Heights isn't just a place. It's a lesson. And anyone who forgets that, will find out exactly what happens when they challenge the Johnsons. As night fell, the neighborhood settled into a peaceful calm, but the story of that week, the confrontation, the revelation, and the triumph, would echo for years to come. Maplewood Heights had been tested, and the Johnsons had not just survived, they had reclaimed their legacy, their power, and their community.